FM Talk 1065. Dan Brennan, along with Alison Herlihy. You know all about Herlihy, Herlihy Family Law. And thank you again for coming by the studio, Alison.
Thank you, Dan.
Got some questions for you. You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
I think you're ready for them. And I don't think this is going to throw you off too bad because as I look at your website, this is what you do, basically. So when someone gets a divorce, in what situations do they have to pay or, on the other side, do they get to receive alimony? How does that work?
Sure. The purpose of alimony is to maintain the lifestyle of a financially dependent spouse after a divorce. Alimony is based on both the dependent spouse's need, but also the paying spouse's ability to pay.
Okay.
So
you can't just demand what you want.
Right.
Maybe his ability to provide that has changed through the years.
Right. So,
Yeah.
like, the court would also consider what the debt obligations of the parties are and things like that, what child support is, how much that is. If both of the spouses are gainfully employed at a level where they can support themselves, then it's really not an alimony case.
Really?
And we just don't see alimony as often as we used to when I first started practicing because it's just rare that you have one spouse that stays at home nowadays.
Okay. So
Or it's much more rare.
So if they're both working, then there's less chance it's going to be alimony or less alimony is going to be paid out?
Right.
Okay. How about if kids are grown and gone and all of that sort of thing and people are ready to move on, a couple's ready to move on after, raising their kids? Does alimony ever play a role there?
Yeah, so when you say move on, you mean like in your personal life?
Well, move on in your personal life,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
I mean, and the kids have moved on.
Right, yeah.
So there's only the two of you left.
The obligation to pay alimony terminates when the receiving spouse gets remarried or cohabitates in a relationship.
Okay.
And that's a great question because there's actually a new statute that just came effective July 1st of this year. About when alimony terminates.
Okay, is this in the state of Alabama?
In the state of Alabama,
okay,
yes.
I think there's been a couple of changes. We'll get to those. So what's
Right.
this one?
So this big change is our law used to say that alimony terminated when the receiving spouse gets remarried or cohabitates with a member of the opposite sex.
Right.
So as I'm sure you're aware, same-sex relationships are a lot more prevalent and out in the open these days. So because of that, in part, the law was modified to specifically define what cohabitation means.
Okay.
So first of all, it doesn't have to be a member of the opposite sex.
Got it.
It can be any individual, and it defines cohabitation as two adults dwelling together on an ongoing basis in a private relationship, and it has to involve some kind of mutual financial support.
Okay. Boy, that's
So it's very specific.
yeah, but at the same time now you are I don't know, you've got to prove one thing or the other. Does that come into it? Private eyes, things like that?
Right. Yeah. Marriage is pretty easy to prove.
Right.
If there's a marriage license, you're married.
Exactly.
Cohabitation can be very hard to prove, and that's been kind of a hotly litigated area of the law the past few years.
I would think so, yeah.
Some people do get private investigators. We've had cases where we've subpoenaed records from different utilities, like the power company and the water company, and you're able to show that the two parties are on each other's utility bills or on each other's leases for their house and things like that. So those are the types of things you have to show.
Any other changes recently in Alabama, divorce that people should definitely be aware of?
Right. The other big change in our alimony law came into effect in 2018.
What was that?
And our law now specifically says that rehabilitative alimony is what's preferred under the law. And that
means
means
what?
alimony that's paid for a limited time certain after the divorce.
Okay.
And that's designed to rehabilitate the receiving spouse so that they can kind of get back up on their feet and be self-supporting. So, like, for instance, maybe give them time to complete their education or seek job training or find a job or things like that.
You don't want to take the wind completely out of their sails. You don't want to destroy them. You want to, I don't know, help both parties along a little bit. Be fair. Is that
Right,
what it's all
right.
about, basically?
Right. And so now it's really specifically codified into the law that it's not preferred for alimony to be indefinite. The main exception to that is if you've been married in excess of 20 years.
Okay.
Then there's not really a time limitation.
And that term again was
Rehabilitative alimony.
Alimony, okay.
And what we typically see, according to our statute, is that would most often be for 5 years or less.
Okay, all right. I know you've got all this at your website.
Yes, we do.
You've got a lot at your website. I brag about it nearly every day on FM Talk 106.5 and Mobile Mornings. It's a great website. If you're going through anything like this, if you're contemplating going through something like this, I would really take a look at HerlihyFamilyLaw.com. It's got a lot of great information there for you, including 9 things to consider when you're about to get a divorce. Excellent. And thank you for dropping by.
Thank you.
Again, that's HerlihyFamilyLaw.com.